So today on the Vegas Apocalypse Quarantine Theater, we're going to look at the Julianne Moore movie, Safe. And when watching this movie, talking about it, on the edge of when Las Vegas is about to step out of quarantine. And of course, everybody's going to was wondering, well, most everybody is wondering, how safe is it really going to be out there? And of course, since we're stepping out of quarantine, this is going to be the last movie I will be reviewing at Quarantine Theater. Unless, of course, we screw up big time and we have to go back into quarantine. Then I'll dig out more quarantine movies. Let's talk about Safe. Now, in the movie Safe, you have Julianne Moore is Carol White. She's married, living a very affluent lifestyle in Southern California, and starts to feel a little ill. Things just aren't that well with her, and she keeps going from doctor to doctor to doctor, and yet she keeps feeling these symptoms. So she's throwing up. Sometimes she has fits and seizures, and they can't seem to find out why. And because it's just baffling modern medicine, she just keeps going to more and more doctors. And of course, the first question that the doctors ask when she goes in is, how's your insurance? And finally, it ends where she winds up going to a camp. And at this camp, of course, the people who are at this camp are trying to escape the impurities of life. Some might even think that they're allergic to modern life, that just going outside and seeing something, touching something, just makes them ill, and they don't understand why that is. And this is just only a few people at the time. And ultimately, there's just no hope for this woman. And she winds up living in an igloo at the end of the movie, an igloo on this camp. And the leader of this camp, by the way, just says that he's allergic to the 20th century. And finally, she winds up living in an igloo on the camp. And the movie just ends with her there suffering, hoping that she's living in a safe place, and she seems to be worse off for being safe. And when I first saw this movie, my first thought was to almost just kind of dump on the woman. You know, come on, you're being duped into all these psychosomatic fixes and all that. On the other hand, today, when I'm watching it, of course, years after the fact, and we're going through this pandemic, I'm thinking, man, maybe she didn't get enough credit. I mean, what she was afraid of today is basically what we're all afraid of now. Just going out, touching something, getting COVID-19, having our lungs basically collapse within 3 weeks. But on the other hand, we need to be safe. Now, we could actually extend this a little bit more, but we've already determined that our economy is more important than the lives. Funny, I always thought that the economy was to try to support our life. The other way around, our life is meant to support the economy. Well, you go figure. But it would be terrible to spend all your time trying to be safe from COVID-19 and then find out that you're getting hit by a truck tomorrow. Or better yet, going out, spending all your time learning how to drive the truck or learning how to drive your car, right, so you don't get to an accident, and then you get COVID-19. So we do what we can, and if our system doesn't help us to be safe, then obviously something in the system needs to be fixed. But moving on, yesterday I decided to step out just to see what was going on in Vegas. Since I am starting work, that's one of the reasons that I'm going to have to close the door on the Quarantine Theater for a while. I just needed to get used to what was out there, and of course I passed all the bars and restaurants, and a lot of the restaurants are open. Some of the bars still are boarded up, and I don't know if that means they're going out of business or if at some point they're going to be removing the boards and it's going to be business as usual. But right now, some of the bars are still closed. The theaters are opening, but I haven't seen any listing as far as what movies are on. And then, of course, I went to the Skyline that I talked about the last time when this whole thing started. And the restaurants are back open, but they take your temperature when you come in. There really aren't a lot of tables in there. You get the feeling that it's a premium restaurant now with one table practically. Well, that's not exactly true, but there just aren't any tables, so I just got food to go. And of course, I did get a haircut. and I hope I've emerged safely. My barber was wearing a mask and all. And yesterday I went out on the Strip to see what was going on the Strip. The Resorts World, which is a very popular Asian casino. And they have them in the Philippines, they have them in Macau, they have them in a number of other places overseas, and I do believe they have some in London as well. Anyway, they're building, and it looks big, and as you can see from this video, it does faces the Trump Towers, but this Asian casino is going to be dwarfing the Trump Towers. That makes me feel good in a way, because, you know, at Vegas we do depend on the international traveler. And as we open, it's just going to be local travel until they open the door for international travel. And considering how most Americans have been broke, unless of course they were saving their money, and unless maybe they were qualified for the extra $600 boost, we don't know exactly what tourism is going to be like when the casinos open this Thursday. I'm sure that there will be a big crowd and we'll have people standing in line, but the real test is going to be a few weeks from now. And we'll see whether or not business is booming or whether or not we're still trying to recover. And while I was on the Strip, I got to speak with Victoria Hartmann, who was the director of the Mohney Erotic Heritage Museum, about some of the things that they're doing to adapt to COVID-19, some of the changes that they've made. And you can see the full interview at my other webpage, walkertown.com. But here's a snippet, and on this one, I was asking her if she ever got any pushback from the city. Because Las Vegas, you know, you see basically adult nightclubs everywhere. You see women out there wearing, you know, thongs and showgirl outfits and all that. Everything about Vegas just seems to scream sex, sex, sex. So you wouldn't think that the Erotic Heritage Museum would be having any trouble from the city. But you might be wrong. Take a look at this. The Erotic Heritage Museum has actually received pushback from the city of Las Vegas.
Yep, actually, what was it, about a year ago? Well, actually two things happened. One was a little bit before my time. When we first opened, we had some murals out on the south side of the building. And those were murals of topless cartoon characters. And the city descended on the museum and said, no, 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 that's obscenity, you have to cover that up. And so we put pasties on the nipples of the cartoon characters. Eventually those pasties fell off and the cartoon characters were exposed again, but they never came back around to cite us or anything. And those ended up being covered up by the puppetry, our advertisements that we have now, the puppetry, the penis show that we have here. And the second time was, there was an organization out of Denver who was hosting the world's largest orgy about a year ago, and it was featured on Stephen Colbert on the Tonight Show, and it exposed their relationship with the Embassy Suites, and the parent company of the Embassy Suites ended up canceling the entire booking. So we approached them and said, hey, we'd like to sponsor you or work with you in some fashion, and they were like, can we have the orgy there? And once we announced that, and we were going to close the museum to the public. It was only going to be for the attendees, and they were basically renting the building out. I was visited by Vice, by Las Vegas PD. I got calls from our attorneys that the city government had called our attorneys. And then I got another visit from Vice, and then we had to bring on our one of our ACLU attorneys, the same gentleman that defended the Green Door here in town. And at the last minute, the folks who were organizing it got a cease and desist, and they moved it to the Green Door like an hour before the event. So yeah, Vegas is actually a lot more conservative than you would think.
So you can see the entire interview at walkertown.com. So thank you for watching, and I'll be back next time, and we will see what life is like in post-COVID-19 apocalyptic Las Vegas. Talk to you later. Thanks for watching.